Hey up, it's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek, and another quick news bite. Just 3 stories today, so we'll get into it. Let's take the intro. Skadoosh. Right, I'm back. Right, let's get the news window up. Right, first up, as you can see there, I can't because I've got other things obscuring my window. House of the Dragon has HBO's biggest debut with 10 million views. Game of Thrones spin-off House of the Dragon had the biggest debut ever for a HBO. Should be a HBO or an HBO. I don't know. Original series with 10 million views on its Sunday evening release. And there's Matt Smith and whoever plays Mini Daenerys. Because that's what she is, isn't she? She's probably actually closer to the age that I think Daenerys was supposed to be in the books. I've got the books. Well, I think I've got the first 4, I think, something like that, on Kindle, and I've never read them. I started reading the first one, didn't like it. Found it boring, to be honest, but that's by the by. Right. By the way, I quite enjoyed the episode 1 of House of the Dragon. I didn't think it was perfect. I give it a 7 out of 10 in my flash review, which is getting quite a few views for my channel anyway. A couple of downvotes, well, 3 I think, but you can't please everybody, can you? But I did quite enjoy it. It was a typical Game of Thrones thing, and there were a news thing where the producer says there wouldn't be gratuitous sex and violence in it, and in the first episode there was gratuitous sex and violence. So they were fibbing. Anyway, House of the Dragon, maybe it's just in that first episode, I don't know. House of the Dragon has HBO's biggest series debut ever with 10 million views. I think Game of Thrones, the first series, first episode of season 1, I think only got like 2 million views, I think. It'll probably tell us in this article. Based on Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin's faux historical account of House tickling my nose. For historical account of House Targaryen in the novel Fire and Blood, House of the Dragon is a prequel to the original show taking place roughly 200 years earlier. 172. You could have just said that. Showrunners Ryan Condal, whatever, and Miguel Sapochnik oversee an all-star cast for the series, which includes Paddy Considine, not Constantine. I've seen loads of reviewers saying Constantine. Considine, who pronounces his G's in words like king. It says king and something. If you notice it, it stood out to me and made me smile. Which includes Paddy Considine, Emma Darcy. I think that's her, isn't it? I don't know. Matt Smith, Olivia Cook, Millie Alcock, Graham McTavish, and Rhys Ifans. HBO has been plotting various Game of Thrones spin-offs since before the main series ended, and House of the Dragon is the first to make it all the way to the small screen. Because they did one, didn't they? They did like a pilot. They spent a load of money on, didn't they? And apparently it was garbage, and they just scrapped it. But I can't remember what that was called. From what I recall off the top of my head, ahead of its debut, there was much debate over whether the prequel series would have the same impact as its predecessor. Game of Thrones once stood as the biggest television show in the world and the most pirated. Yet overall reception to its final season skewed heavily negative. As a result, it wasn't clear if that would turn some viewers off of House of the Dragon. Based on the early numbers, it hasn't in the slightest. HBO is now reporting that House of the Dragon pulled in 9.986 million viewers across linear and streaming platforms in its Sunday night debut, which is roughly 8 million more viewers than the original Game of Thrones had when it debuted in 2011 with 2.22 million viewers. See how I write? My memory does work sometimes. Despite a number of reported outages and issues for some viewers using specific apps, House of the Dragon still managed to crush its debut. The show has received strong word of mouth and critical reviews while dominating social media platforms ahead of and during its premiere. Casey Bloys, I presume that's how I pronounce it, apologise if it ain't, Chief Content Officer at HBO and HBO Max, commented on the historical debut for the network, saying, "It was wonderful to see millions of Game of Thrones fans return with us to Westeros last night. House of the Dragon features an incredibly talented cast and crew who poured their heart and soul into the production and were ecstatic with viewers' positive response. We look forward to sharing with audiences what else George, Ryan and Miguel have in store for them this season." House of the Dragon Season 1 will comprise 10 episodes in total, with more seasons surely to follow. I've heard it's 3. I've heard they're going to do 3 seasons, but that's not what it says here. Surely to follow that will likely cover the current storyline for 3 to 4 seasons. I've heard 3. The showrunners have said that House of the Dragon could serve as a launching point for earlier or later stories in Targaryen history. Although they say there is a planned ending in mind for the current narrative arc. Well, they all died, don't they? Apart from Daenerys and her brother. Which is such a massive debut. With such a massive debut and interest in the Game of Thrones universe reawakened, House of the Dragon could potentially run as long as the original series, if not longer, especially given the scope of Martin's book, which spans 300 years before Game of Thrones. This is assuming interest holds up after the premiere. The big numbers could be because of curiosity. Now House of the Dragon needs to hold on to that audience. Judging from episode 1, I think it will, to be honest. There'll probably be a slight drop, but I think it'll hold on to most of its audience, because it was quite a good first episode. It wasn't amazing, but it was quite good. Good enough to make me want to watch episode 2 anyway. It's only been 3 years since Game of Thrones dominated the cable streaming airwaves, and House of the Dragon has now proven that the brand is stronger than ever. While many Game of Thrones fans were disappointed by the series finale, the final season, there's still plenty of love for the rest of the universe, which captured the zeitgeist throughout its 8-season run. It will be interesting to see if House of the Dragon maintains this level of viewership throughout the first season, as it will break even more HBO records. If it does, and likely put more Game of Thrones spin-offs on the fast track to keep the momentum. House of the Dragon, really, they can't help themselves, can the executives? Just, something works, do more, and then everybody's thinking, we don't want more. We want good, not more. Anyway, House of the Dragon releases new episodes Sundays on HBO and HBO Max, and that as well. So there you go. So 10 million nearly views. So that's a good start. It's a good start. They'll say that's a success, and it is. It is. Right, next up, Star Trek. New video claims that males are red shirts on new Star Trek. I've had a quick look at this article. I haven't read it all. I've just had a quick scan through it. And it's about Major Green. He's got a YouTube channel. He's very funny, I must admit. And he does clips. He doesn't appear on them himself, but he does clips about Star Trek mostly. And how rubbish new Star Trek is, which it is for the most part. Apart from Strange New Worlds, which I really like, but Major Green doesn't. And, showing how rubbish it is compared to classic Star Trek and, the original series and Berman era Trek. Anyway, let's have a read, right. But this article, it's kind of pushing against Major Green. It's a bit of a more mainstream article. Anyway, so we'll read. As much as fans of Star Trek The Next Generation love the show, they're making excuses as well, by the way, there was a time when Trekkies were outraged at the thought of a new Enterprise. That time was just before the debut of Next Gen in 1987. Yeah, but don't forget, in Star Trek 3, the original Enterprise, the refit Enterprise, were destroyed, wasn't it? I mean, fans weren't complaining really. I don't recall it anyway. When the motion picture came out and we saw the new Enterprise, the refit one, I don't remember many people complaining about, the new design of the Enterprise. I know some people didn't like the squared off nacelles, more rectangular than round, and the loss of the orangey red Bussard collectors. I don't know what I'm doing that for. But on the whole, people liked the refit Enterprise, and it's often regarded as the most beautiful rendition of any Enterprise, which it probably is. It looks nice from any angle. It looks really good. And they weren't complaining when we got the Enterprise A at the end of Star Trek 4, was there? So, anyway, now the Next Generation is hailed as the best Trek of them all, according to Screen Rant and many others. No, because usually if you ask Star Trek fans, a lot of them will say Deep Space Nine is the best. They do. Anyway, thanks to a newspaper article from the era preserved on Reddit, fans from 2022 can look back at what folks were saying. By the way, there's a link there if you want to go read it. As usual, all the links are in the description below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It's up there in the red box. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell and drop a comment and all that stuff. It'd be much appreciated. I forgot where I was. Preserved on Reddit. Fans from 2022 can look back at what folks were saying about the previous edition of New Trek, the Next Generation. Among the complaints were those from a die-hard fan from Atlanta, Georgia, named Ruth Breisinger, who led a letter-writing campaign to stop the Next Generation. It's ludicrous, Breisinger, apologise if I'm mispronouncing that, told writer Dave Thomas. The charm and success of the original show was based on the perfect mix of characters and the actors playing these parts. It's the family of characters, especially the relationships between Captain Kirk, played by William Shatner, and Spock, the character that Leonard Nimoy made famous. She's kind of right that season 1 of The Next Generation, you didn't have that family feel among the crew, because they were new together, weren't they? We don't know. In the original series, we don't actually know how long that Kirk had been in command of the Enterprise. He was just there, wasn't he? And all the crew dynamics were already in place, wasn't he? Sometimes Spock called him Jim, so we knew they were friends, and Bones called him Jim all the time, so we knew they were friends probably from way back. But we didn't actually know it. Never went into it, did it? We just accepted it. Whereas in the Next Generation, they were all new characters together. Apart from Troy and Riker, who they had a history, but they were just like a rejig of the Deckard Ilea couple, weren't they, from the motion picture? They were really. But I loved Next Generation from the get-go. I used to watch it. I think we were on BBC Two here in the UK when it first started. I don't think it was in 1987. I think it was a little bit later, maybe a year or two after that. But I loved it. I thought it was great, Next Generation. I loved the effects. I thought it was great. I used to get really excited when it was coming on. Anyway, some not-so-classic episodes. Right, that's from Cupid, isn't it? Cupid. I don't like that episode. Even though people say, oh, it's great, and it's laughing, I am not a merry man and all that. I didn't like it. Right, Joan Verber of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was the vice chair of the Star Trek Well Committee fan group before the launch of The Next Generation. She also was not excited about the new show. There are many fans who really hate the idea of a new show, Verber told Thomas in the article, and a lot of them think that if it isn't well received, it will reflect badly on the new movies. This all might sound familiar to fans of Star Trek Discovery or Picard or Strange New Worlds, meaning that fans of the previous versions of Trek do not care for the newer takes on the franchise. Well, there's always going to be people that complain about new things. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan, to be honest, of Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica reboot at first. I thought it was good, but I was one of these that I prefer the original. And I remember my brother got really mad because I don't think he'd seen it. I was describing it to him, and I said, "Oh, the Cylons look like humans now," and he went, "Oh, they always do that, don't they? They always make them look like people just to save money." He gets dead mad at that. Cheap, it's a cop out, but it kind of is, isn't it? It's just to save money, isn't it? Anyway, this all I've read that answer. Right, I get it. Right. Recently, in an interview with the Radio Times, the star of Discovery acknowledged that some fans might not like her show or the current version of Star Trek. Right. When Discovery started, season 1, I really liked season 1 of Star Trek Discovery because, I admit it was different, and I admitted it wasn't perfect, but I found the story interesting enough to keep me glued, and I actually watched each episode about 3 times, in the space of a week before the next episode came along. But after that, I didn't. I probably watched each episode just once because it really went downhill after season 1. But I think season 1 was probably just the novelty value of it, and because there were new characters, and I just wanted to see what happened. I didn't like the Klingons, and I didn't like the ship designs. But I liked the story, and I thought it was violent and gritty, and it was different. It was a different Star Trek. But as it went on, I kind of fell out with it. And the rest is history. Anyway, so because of that, this is her saying this. So because of that, their voices deserve to be heard, and we appreciate their voices, even if they are in disagreement with us. Yeah, that's why you call them like racists and misogynists and stuff like that. Not you personally, love. I mean, people in general. Said Martin Green in the July 2022 interview. Even if they're criticising, it's like, I get where you're coming from, though. It's because this means a lot to you. And that's the thing they don't realise. A lot of people that bash critics of the show is critical of it because they love the franchise and they don't want it to be ruined, which it kind of has under Alex Kurtzman's leadership. And J.J. Abrams before him, because they don't understand Star Trek. So thankfully, Strange New Worlds snuck in. I think it snuck in under Kurtzman's radar. And then he found out about it and parachuted himself in the last episode. That's my theory anyway, because that last episode of season 1 of Strange New Worlds were bloody awful. Right. Many fans have taken to social media to express their opinion on the shows, including on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. But one creator on YouTube continues to strike a nerve with his compilation videos. The mysterious Major Grin posts about Star Trek regularly, and most of the time he or she is critical of the new shows. In his latest video, the Major suggests that only male characters die in the new shows. In a carefully crafted series of moments from Discovery, Picard and Strange New Worlds, the Major serves up scene after scene of male characters dying or getting beaten up. By presenting this footage, the Major suggests that male characters are the equivalent to the red shirts from the original series, which were essentially expendable personnel. Yeah, but I don't understand. It goes on, but I'll say this now. What the writer of this article doesn't understand is that it's not just that it's male characters that die in the new shows, because it's not. It goes on to expand on that in this article. It's not just male characters that die, but the male characters that die are more often than not depicted as either evil or incompetent or misogynist, or it's all about identity politics and the gender, the differences in gender norms and all that nonsense, which it is nonsense. We should be well past that, especially in the 23rd century and beyond. Because you didn't have this sort of things in the original series and Berman era Trek, but they're doing it now because they've got a platform, they've got a message to deliver, and they're using Star Trek as a platform. It's all about getting the agenda across and the message across, and they've got rules that they've got to follow. There was what they call like a white paper or something that was handed out. I don't know who wrote these rules, but it's gone through Hollywood, and they've got rules that they've got to follow. Men can't be shown to be mentoring women and all this. Women have got to be great from day one until the end, and all that. It's true. It's an actual document. I think Robert Meyer Burnett found it, and he didn't like it either. But yeah, so that's what the missing in this article. They're just saying, it's just all about men are rubbish and men. It's only men that die, but it's not just about that. It's about the way that the men die. They're usually shown as incompetent or evil, not just that they're just men. Anyway, right. The red shirts would die in the episode to heighten tension, so Kirk, Spock, Dr. McCoy, and the other established characters could live on. Yeah, but the thing, even in the original series, it wasn't just red shirts, was it? They said red shirts because red shirts were, security, weren't they? As well as all the engineering as well. I think it's the equivalent of operations, isn't it? Is the red shirts in the original series. So basically, I think operations were the largest department, wasn't it? So there were more red shirts than any other, really. But others did die. Other coloured shirts did die. But if you were a red shirt, you're probably more likely to. But they dispute that in this article. Major Grin's selection does show male characters dying. Still, there have been notable female character deaths on the shows as well. That includes the death of Asira, Janet Kidder, at the end of Discovery Season 3. I don't remember that. Discovery Season, which was that one? I can't remember. Arium, the Discovery Bridge crew member, played by Hannah Cheeseman and Sarah Mitic, also died. That were like cybernetic, which I didn't really understand. That character, to be honest. She was like the Borg, wasn't she? And they're always saying, the Borg are so advanced in their cybernetics, and yet we had Arium, who were like amazing. But she died anyway because of control, which itself kind of alluded to being like a proto-Borg, but wasn't. But they put that in there, didn't they, to try and make us think that. Because they did use the resistance is futile line. God, I hate it. The original Captain Giorgio, Michelle Yeoh, died and was replaced by her Mirror Universe counterpart. Yeah, well, it's not to say she was killed, wasn't she, by the Klingons. Admiral Cornwell, Jane Brooks, sacrificed herself to save Captain Pike, Anson Mount, and the rest of the Enterprise crew. Yep, Commander Landry, Rika Sharma, was ripped to shreds by a giant tardigrade in Discovery Season 1. Based on the list above, it is fair to surmise that Major Grimm, getting a jibe in there, it's just a typo. M's next to N on the keyboard, isn't it? Not a typo. Might be wrong regarding males being the new red shirts. The Major might actually be correct in the video that followed, which argues that all leaders are females on New Trek. That is entirely true. If one ignores, he's being sarcastic now. If one, I don't know who wrote it. Does it say who wrote it at the top? Let's have a look. Eric Persola. So he's being sarcastic now. That is entirely true if one ignores Admiral Picard, Captain Rios, Captain Pike, Dr. Mabenga, Admiral Vance, and a few other characters. However, it is important to note that the red shirts always die theory was proven false in 2013 thanks to research done by statistician Matthew Barsalou. He stated that being a red shirt was actually quite safe as long as the crew member was not serving in a security detail. As I said, because red shirts, it's the largest department, isn't it, on the starship? So obviously security details are going to be there front and centre in landing parties, aren't they? So they're the ones that are most at risk. Stupid man. But it's missed the point of what Major Grin is trying to get across. It's not that it's all about the females, not dying. Yes, females died, but it's usually the way men are killed in New Trek. As I said, they're usually evil or incompetent or misogynist, mansplaining, stuff like that. Not saying that all men like that are in New Trek. I mean, Captain Pike's, a really good character. But it's usually the women that, the female characters that save the day. It's just the way it is. It's usually that way. So there you go. So that's an article that'll probably get a lot of people hot under the collar. And rightly so, because it's nonsense. So sorry, Eric Persola. So you can't see his name there. Shall I move him across so you can have a look at his amazing face? There he is. Look, Eric Persola writes articles that are rubbish. So there you go. Right, finally. This is a sad one, to be honest. Star Wars and Hammer horror actor Peter Cushing's former home in Whitstable falls into disrepair. And there it is with the blue plaque on it. And there's the great man himself. Oh, no, let's get rid of that. Oh, I hate them things. Do you accept cookies and stuff? Oh, go away. Right, fans of one of Kent's most famous acting talents have expressed fears that his legacy will not be protected after his former home fell into disrepair. Hammer horror star Peter Cushing, who lived in Whitstable for the last 25 years of his life, appeared in numerous films during his long career, including Dracula, Dr. Frankenstein, and Star Wars. I always remember the TV show, the comedy quiz show QI. It's massive in the UK, or it used to be. I don't know if it still is. I presume it is. Hosted by Stephen Fry and Alan Davis. And I always remember Alan Davis saying there was a song about Peter Cushing. I can't remember the name of the group that sang it, but they sang, Peter Cushing lives in Whitstable. I have seen him on his bicycle. I have seen him buying vegetables. Peter Cushing lives in Whitstable. And it always made me laugh. And he says, it's just that repeated over and over again, but there's go up each time. But I've never actually heard it, the actual song. I've just heard that rendition on QI. It'll be on YouTube. Look it up. Right, Star Wars and Hammer horror actor Peter Cushing's former home near Island Wall in Whitstable. Oh, there's supposed to be a picture there, probably. Crowds are often seen outside his former home on the town's coast near Island Wall, which bears a blue plaque commemorating his memory. But residents and visitors have been left disturbed by its increasingly dilapidated condition, with out-of-control plants obscuring much of the neglected building. Neighbour Michael Bax, 60, describes the garden as in poor condition and rather overgrown. I haven't seen anyone living there or using it, he says. He said, I think there's supposed to be a photo there, isn't there, but it's not showing. I think local figures should be celebrated in their communities. There's a plaque on it. Yeah, it's a shame it's not in the condition it should be. Yeah, because if the council have gone to the trouble of, the expense of doing a plaque and getting permission from the homeowner to fit it on the house, then I think the council should, help keep the house in a decent condition. At least the grounds of it, anyway. Should send somebody in to keep it tidy, so that everybody can see the plaque and know that it's an important place. Anyway, obviously it's a private house, so we can't comment on what the owner is doing with it, but it would be nice if it looked a bit nicer. The yard is very overgrown, so it hasn't been taken care of lately. Another neighbour, oh God, I don't know how you pronounce that, Azagul Coles, apologise, flower pot, 57, described Cushing as a beautiful character and believes that people who have achieved good things like him deserve a fitting tribute. I think there's a museum, isn't there? Or sort of a mini museum in Whitstable. I think there's a cafe. There's a cafe that he used to go to regularly. And I think like a section of it, or they used to have a section of it, is dedicated to Peter Cushing, and there's things there, that he like. I think there's even an ashtray, because he was a bit of a chain smoker, wasn't he, Peter Cushing? An ashtray with one of his, spent cigarette butts in it. Anyway, that's by the by. Yeah, there's supposed to be a photo there. Not doing very well with their photos, are they? It's very sad to see it like this, she said. Kent Online understands that the owners of the home, whom Ms. Coles describes as sensible and sweet neighbours when they were here, do not now live with the property and cannot currently make renovations. Ms. Coles says she has seen crowds gather outside the house with people travelling to the area to see it. Yeah, I probably would. I'm a big Peter Cushing fan. If I were in Whitstable, I would seek it out to say I've seen where Peter Cushing lived. Of course, it needs TLC, tender loving care, and the plaque just stays there, she added. People come to see the house for him, like Charles Dickens in Broadstairs. And there's supposed to be another photo there. People love to look at it. I've heard conversations when people pass by saying things like, I can't see it because it's overgrown, and it's so sad to see it like this. though Cushing has a Wetherspoon pub named after him and a dedicated exhibition at the Whitstable Museum, there you go, there are calls to raise awareness of the movie star in the city. Is it a city? I didn't know. Tourist David Wowell, I don't know how to pronounce, sorry, Wowell, that's a great name, from Macclesfield, spoke highly of a recent visit to Whitstable, but as a Peter Cushing fan says, he is discouraged. The only disappointment we experienced as fans of British cinema, and especially the horror films, was the lack of familiarity the city has with Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing, he said. Apologies. I think there's supposed to be more photos there that aren't showing. We did what we could and looked up some of his art in the excellent museum, found a seat on his Cushing's View couch, and had lunch in his favourite Tudor tea rooms. I think that's where they've got a little display for him. We also visited his house, although we were sorry to see it in a rather neglected state. Mr. Wooll told how it contrasted with the recent visit to Whitby, where the town's Dracula connection is milked for all its value and is bringing in many fans. Yeah, it does. We believe that Mr. Cushing was a gifted artist and jeweller whose work deserves more attention, he added. Many people still hold great affection for his Hammer horror and Doctor Who films, and for a younger generation who will also be associated with his role in Star Wars. The town may not want to massively attract the goth visitor Whitby has made its own, but we felt the town was missing something of a trick by not paying more attention to its legacy. Perhaps a mural like the one with Somerset Maugham, or a larger permanent space for his art, an exhibition at the train station, more of his films shown at the Horsebridge Cinema around Halloween, and his house getting some TLC are some thoughts. Well, that's the least they could do, innit? Tidy up the house. Cushing was known for his old-fashioned manners and good sense of humour. The locals were reportedly very protective of him and often uncooperative to lead strangers into his home. Apparently, he was a lovely man, wasn't he? People have always said that. He was super professional. And he was, really well-mannered and, a lovely man. Whitstable Museum curator Peter Banbury explained how Cushing moved to the city because his wife was in fragile health. They bought the house specifically because Helene Cushing, or Helene, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, was in fragile health, and they chose Whitstable for the clear sky. I think she passed away in the early 70s, didn't she? I think it was just before he filmed Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, and what are you in Blood from the Mummy's Tomb? I can't remember now. But I think he got through that, and he was very professional, but everybody could tell, he was devastated by the death of his wife. But he was just keeping himself busy with the work. Anyway, he was also a great swimmer and could swim every day if he could. It was also a fair distance from London with the West End and the film industry. So to see the house in a terrible state is disturbing. But I don't see how you can interfere in someone's private home in any way. They could tidy up the garden, couldn't they? Because the council, technically, they're supposed to, but they are around here anyway. If you're elderly or disabled, you can have the council come in and tidy up your garden for them. They'll cut your grass and your hedges if you've got them. Keep it tidy for you. If you can't do it yourself, the council do it for you. So they should do it, for this, because it's got a blue plaque on, so it's a heritage site. They should just tidy up the garden. And the photo there, Peter Cushing in his garden with his bicycle as he's buying vegetables. But there's no photo because it didn't show in. According to Banbury, the house is in an absolutely stunning position and must be worth over £1 million. He says the museum is quite surprised by the number of people who still come to see the Peter Cushing display because it's super popular. He died in 1994 and his legacy continues, he said. Remember, he was in Rogue One as well. They recreated him. Not entirely successfully, in CG, but it was okay. It wasn't bad. As far as we're concerned, we have plans in the museum to revamp the display. Revamp Dracula, because we have movie costumes and things in storage, and we want to exhibit more. Whether the city can do more depends on finances and finding someone to organise it. Cushing has starred in more than 100 films, including more than 20 of Hammer. He died in 1994 at the Pilgrim's Hospice in Canterbury at the age of 81. And it's very sad, his house, his old house that he spent his last years in is in a bit of a state. It does look nice. There's the balcony there, isn't there? And there's the blue plaque. Can't really see. Can we zoom in a bit? Will it let me zoom in? See if we can read what it says. Oh, steady. Where you going? Zoom a bit more. Come on, keep going. Oh, I think that's maximum. Can just make it out. Peter Cushing, OBE. Can't read the rest. Can't read. Can I read? Get me magnifying glass. Can't read it. Something. 1994. Actor. There you go. Right, we'll shrink it back down again. So whatever I have it at, well, I don't know. That's near enough. But yes, it's very sad. And the council should, all they've got to do is come in, just, trim the plants back. I mean, they could even give it a lick of paint, couldn't they? Just to tidy it up a bit. I'm sure the owners would, the council should come in and just buy the house, shouldn't they? Really. But as I said, it's all about money, innit? And the council won't spend more money than they have to. Apart from sending councillors on jamborees, or whatever they call them, to foreign climes, fact-finding missions. It's a load of rubbish. Anyway, right, we'll leave it there. Right, so somebody in Whitstable pay for his house scene too. Right, so quick do, well, half an hour. What we're going to say? Oh, right, we've got She-Hulk coming up, haven't we? Episode 2 in a couple of days, so there'll be a review of that. Probably a quick one, one of my flash reviews. But until then, we'll leave it there. So wherever you are in the universe, look after each other, and until next time, I'll say this.